Turn down for what?
Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Happy Sunday, guys. I hope you have a great weekend so far. I know I have. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays and Fridays, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Quick shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And what is up, guys? Oh, we have some interesting stories to talk about today. It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but they're all important. At least I think so. I want to give quick shout outs to people in the chat, and we will dive right in. Shout out to Joe OWS says Lula's administration and presidency of Brazil was cooled by the United States government several years ago, and Bolsonaro was put in place by the US CIA. Lula is ready to expose this. It'll be good. Oh, so much is happening. So much is going on. Shout out to Lawrence, who is a Sabby member, sends the snake emoji. What's going on? Hannah G says Warren equals snake. We'll get into it. Shout out to Brandy says, hello, everyone. Greeting Desert Mantis says, be right back. Gotta go for a walk with my four-legged roommate. Your little pup. Greetings, Angela, who's a Sabby member, says, greetings, Sabby and Sabby chat. You had me at Rogan Copycat. Yes. If you haven't heard about this story, wait till you hear about this today. It's a little bit, it's a little bizarre. It's a little scary, actually, to be honest with you. What's going on? Saul says, Sabby Sabs always makes my Sundays. Thank you so much. Greetings, Trauma Queen. They're going to be framing people for crimes with this AI stuff. Really scary. We're going to get into it today. We're going to get into it. Shout out to Gamer says, hello. Greetings, Mark says, Sabby. Shout out to James, sending a hello there to Gamer. Shout out to KSW says, hi, Gamer. Also, Gamer, I told you, you are popular up in here. Greetings to Miguel, who's a Sabby member, says, peace. Shout out to Samuel, Turned Down for What? Yes. When that song came out, you guys, I could not stop listening to that song. And every time we would go out, we'd go out clubbing and things like that. When that song would come on, I was like, oh, this is my song. We played that song at my wedding too, by the way. When that song came on, everybody was like, this is our song. This is our moment. What's going on? Dan says, Turned Down for What? Shout out to Pachico, who's a Sabby member, says, yay, Sabby, yay. Hello, you got this. You got this. Shout out to Steve, says, hello, everybody. Greetings. Make sure I'm going ahead. Ashura says, not concerned for Skynet at Sabby Sabs. Interesting. What's going on? Wendy says, cool. Got here just in time, seeing a few familiar names too. Gamer, Lawrence, Steve, and Miguel. What's going on? Jeffrey says, doobie-doobie-doo. Is that a sock? Is that a puppet? I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. That's interesting. What's going on? Julia says, hello, Sabby. Shout out to Deneen says, hey, everybody. What's going on, CBC? I'm not sure, Sabby Sabs. Yes, if you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and take that poll. Are you concerned about artificial intelligence? Let me know. We'll reveal the responses to that at the end. That is connected to one of the stories. What's going on? Zach says, hi, Sabby, waving to you from Revere. That's how people say it here. Revere, Massachusetts, one city over. Oh boy, we could tell some stories about Revere one day. One day. Shout out to Sakudo, says, what's good, y'all? Greetings, Masterminds Hour, says, hello, fam. Shout out to Edward, says, hope JB is doing okay in Florida with all the flooding going on. He is. He's okay. Where JB's located is not next to the city that's experiencing the flooding. Like Orlando's more so in the center of Florida. But I've already spoken to JB. He's doing all right. Shout out to Outside Steeler fan, says, hey, comrades, Steeler fans are everywhere, you know. I got a story to tell you one day. I could tell you today if we have time. We'll see. Shout out to Delthea, who's a Sabby member, says, hello, all you beautiful people. Remember to like and sub. That's right. Hit that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe. What are you waiting for? Shout out to Rick, says, hey, y'all. Greetings, Anthony sends a smile. Shout out to Nolan, says, howdy all. Howdy to you too, Nolan. Shout out to Simone, says, it's storming in northern Florida. Oh, I did not know that. Man, that's one reason, like, I honestly, I like to visit Florida, but I don't want to live there. I mean, I've lived in the Southeast. I've dealt with hurricanes for like a long time, but the hurricanes, when they come through Florida, it's really rough. That and the humidity. I don't like high humidity. You know, I'm not really into heat, like, to be honest. I prefer winter weather or fall, but the humidity in Florida is yikes. You can go there if you've never been and you go to Florida during the summer, that humidity will seriously put you to sleep. I'm not kidding. You're just like, go to sleep. All right, guys, I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. You're out here keeping the lights on, literally. Thank you so much, Sabby patrons. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, the ultimate. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. You guys are doing the damn thing. And I want to give a special shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Michael. Just Michael. Just Michael. Just like Madonna. Just first name. All right, guys, what are we going to discuss today? This should be an interesting show. Interesting show. Let's take a look at that thumbnail. We are discussing Joe Rogan Copycat. Yikes. Why does Joe have that look on his face? Why is he concerned? And should you be concerned? Could this happen to you? We're also going to discuss Ron DeSantis banned. This is huge news. This is something I had predicted would happen when Texas actually changed their restrictions in reference to a woman's right to choose. And it is spreading across the South, which is what I predicted would happen. This one is really strict, though, and we're going to get into that. I'm also going to discuss Elizabeth Warren confronted. Dun, dun, dun. That's right. She has been confronted. This one is good. Where do you see this? And we're also going to discuss Lula calls out Joe Biden. You can see the look on his face there. He is not happy with Joe Biden's administration. Thank you so much, Leanne. Hey, Sabby, new member here, signed up on Patreon. Thank you so much and welcome. Shout out to Red. Thank you for the super chat. Sup, Sabby. Sup, Red. And thank you for the super chat, Zach. Did you hear the New Hampshire governor is complaining about the Massachusetts wealth tax, saying it is going to help his state because businesses will flee to Massachusetts, which is pretty stupid. I have heard that. We'll see how many of those businesses actually leave the state. You know, I've known a couple of people that have moved to New Hampshire because it was cheaper to live there. Some of them stayed, some of them didn't, you know. It's different. New Hampshire is very different compared to Massachusetts. And I think if you're coming from that Boston area, some of those people that move from Boston to New Hampshire, they find themselves becoming a little bit bored because there isn't as much to do in reference to entertainment. So, but we'll see. I heard about that. I was like, oh, isn't that something? Shout out to JB says, hello all, give a like right now. That's right. Go ahead and smash that like. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our first story. The wonderful, impeccable Miss Elizabeth Warren. Oh, dear God. So for those who are not aware, Elizabeth Warren, Ayanna Pressley, and Mayor Michelle Wu actually had an event here. I thought about going to it. Then because of the day and the time, it wouldn't have worked out well. But they did have an event to speak to their constituents. And let's just say there were a couple of visitors in the audience that had some things to say to Elizabeth Warren. Now, you guys know Jose, he's been on the show before. Jose is basically starting a slow movement, so to speak, where he is having other people actually join him in confronting politicians. So it's not just Jose anymore. It's not just people that are a part of the LaRouche movement. This is now starting to spread to other cities, other states. More people are joining. And Jose has actually been training people how to do this. So this event happened with Elizabeth Warren, and she's confronted not once, not twice, but if I remember correctly, 3 different times about this war with Russia and Ukraine, and other things as well. Let's get into it.
Senator, we need you to intervene to stop this war in Ukraine.
I hear you. Sit down. We're going to talk. We're going to talk. So let me start by saying hello, Roxbury.
Okay, so the gentleman right here is confronting her about Russia and Ukraine. And you notice her response was, I hear you, we're going to talk. But she's not going to talk about it. She doesn't want to talk about it. She's been confronted about this before. In fact, none of these politicians really want to talk about it, right? But he's doing the right thing here. He's putting her on the spot in front of the people. Now, she goes on to say, hello, Roxbury. So for those who are not familiar, Roxbury is a neighborhood here in Boston. It is predominantly African-American neighborhood. That is changing a little bit because of gentrification. But one of the things that really kills me about the speech that she gives at this event is that she seems to make it all about her, which is something that Elizabeth Warren is accustomed to doing. She tends to do this. I was the first that did this. I came from a family that didn't have that. I didn't have this. They took this away from me. Instead of focusing on the needs of the people. And I think this is important for anyone who's watching and is considering running for office. We don't really need to hear about what you came from, did, and all that stuff after you're elected. We don't really need to hear all these I statements. We need you to say we statements. We need you to talk about the community as a whole. But Elizabeth Warren, she loves to brag about what she was able to accomplish because she didn't come from a political background. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Sir, stop funding Ukrainian Nazis.
Sir, we're going to ask you to leave.
You need to kick Joe Biden's ass so he stops the war.
He said you need to kick his ass. Straight to the point. Straight to the point. I love it. I love it.
We need negotiations. We don't need to be sending weapons to Ukrainian Nazis. You can try.
So he's complaining about the weapons. He's complaining about the Nazis in Ukraine. And honestly, like, he has a pretty loud voice because he doesn't have a microphone. She does have a microphone, and he sounds like he's louder than her. So that's really interesting.
You are my senator. It is your highest responsibility to prevent a nuclear war.
Okay, I'm going to rewind back a little bit because this is where she starts to talk about herself. You have to listen closely to hear it.
We don't need to be sending weapons to Ukrainian Nazis. You can try.
Okay, so she said, I am someone who never ran for public office. Told you she likes to talk about herself a lot. Let's go on.
I
have no electoral history.
You are my senator. It is your highest responsibility.
She said, I have no electoral history, but I started out by coming to Roxbury. Okay.
Prevent a nuclear war. There is no other subject on the agenda.
Let's get you over this.
I voted for you. I voted for you.
Let's get you over this.
To stop nuclear war. Weapons to Ukrainian Nazis, and you voted for it.
So that's the gentleman there. And again, he's calling her out about sending the weapons. And what's interesting, again, like I said, this is Roxbury, predominantly African-American neighborhood. The people who are surrounding him right now, these are most likely people that are either part of her campaign or one of these politicians' campaigns. Remember, it's her, Mayor Michelle Wu, and Ayanna Pressley that are at this event.
Gotta go.
Sir, we're
I
asking
might
you to
vote
leave.
for you if you do that.
We're asking you to leave.
I heard
We are asking you to leave.
it's your
We are asking you to
responsibility.
leave.
So it's time to go.
8
Please,
billion
it is time to
people
go. It
will
is time to
die
go.
in the nuclear.
People care more about hearing from a snake politician than listening to what this guy is saying, because he's telling the truth, unlike Elizabeth Warren.
We are asking you to leave.
It's your
We are asking you to
responsibility.
leave.
So it's time to go.
8
Please,
billion
it is time to
people
go. It
will
is time to
die
go.
in the
Thank
nuclear
you.
war,
Thank
the
you.
one we're headed
Thank
to,
you.
because you keep arming Nazis. You keep sending missiles.
There's nothing he said there that's incorrect. And notice Elizabeth Warren, she doesn't want to address it. This is what I've said before. When she said in the beginning, we're going to talk. No, she has no intention on talking about this. After this clip, I'm going to show you some of the issues with Elizabeth Warren when it comes to foreign policy, because a lot of people, they applaud her for her policies and her decisions in reference to domestic issues, but they are clueless in reference to how Elizabeth Warren feels about foreign policy. And people need to pay attention to this.
Send tanks. You send jets
Go ahead, man.
to Nazis in Ukraine.
All right, thank you,
It's got to stop.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Senator, you did nothing on Glass-Steagall.
So this is the other gentleman.
You should have stood up and done something about this banking crash. This whole system is coming down. And this whole system is coming down and you did nothing. Now,
Okay, let's talk about the banking crisis. Now, why is he calling her out for that? Remember, Elizabeth Warren, that was her big thing when she ran the first time for senator. The big thing that she pressed on was not just the student loan thing. She brought that up too, but was the banking industry, right? She was one of the people that applauded Occupy Wall Street. She was one of the people that criticized the United States government choosing to bail out the banks instead of the American people that lost their homes. So he has every right here to confront her about the banking crisis, because that is her big thing. And she really isn't talking about it for the most part. Let's go on. So he says, now we'll leverage the derivatives. Debt is 99-1. Let me back up just a little bit. There we go.
the whole system is coming down and you did nothing. Now we'll leverage the derivatives debt is 99-1. These big banks are about to blow and you did nothing. You're a phony. At least the Republicans tell you when they're gonna screw you. Get your hands off me. You've got
He's 100% right. At least Republicans, he said she's a phony, which she is. I've been telling people this for years. He said, at least Republicans tell you when they're going to screw you. Not Miss I'm Native American Elizabeth Warren.
gotta do something about this, and you gotta do it now. This system is coming down.
Let's actually protect people by stopping a drive for nuclear war.
This is the third gentleman.
Why aren't you investigating the explosion of the Nord Stream pipeline? You know that the United States blew up the Nord Stream pipeline as an attack against a NATO ally in Germany and against a nuclear power. You used to fight on principle. It's why I campaigned for you.
Please, sir.
Notice when he's speaking, you don't hear as many people in the crowd trying to boo or chant over him. Now, he brought up the Nord Stream issue, which I think more Americans are waking up to this, that article that was written by Seymour Hersh. And we need to continue to talk about it. More people are starting to wake up. When you start mentioning that story, let's talk about the Nord Stream pipeline. People are like, oh, well, wait, what is he talking about? I'm not sure I heard about this. What is this about? But he goes on to mention that he campaigned for her. See, this is the thing. A lot of these politicians, they forget about the people who knocked on doors for them, who phone banked for them, who canvassed for them, who helped them raise a lot of money to help them get elected. And I want to be really clear about Elizabeth Warren in case you're not from Massachusetts and you're not familiar. The first time Elizabeth Warren won, it was very close. It was not a landslide for people who are not aware. The gentleman that she ran against, he was more like a moderate Republican, so to speak. Scott Brown, I believe was his name. But that was actually very close. It was actually younger people who came out to support her that put her over the finish line, because one of the things that she ran on was canceling the student loan debt and that the government should be bailing out the students who have this debt. So that really went over well with a lot of younger people, right? The second time that she ran against a Trump Republican, Jeff Deal. He actually just ran for governor. I don't know. This guy keeps running for office. But he was a big Trump supporter, and he actually had the support, believe it or not, of Governor Baker from Massachusetts. So I believe the reason why she won the second time, which she won by a larger percentage, is because she was running against a Trump-like Republican. So I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I really do believe that somebody needs to primary challenge Elizabeth Warren from the left in this state. It's time for her to go. A lot of people campaigned for her. And after she won the second time for that Senate race, not too long after that, she announced she was running for president, which is exactly what Jeff Deal told us during the debates. He said she's not worried about this state. She's trying to run for president. He was right about that. Now, Jeff Deal's still a clown. Just being real. But that was her intention all along. So you have to really ask yourself, what has Elizabeth Warren really done for the people here in Massachusetts? Because I haven't seen it. What I have seen her do is I've seen her talk about that she's Native American, which that is proven to be false. I have seen her claim that she was a special education teacher for as a career. She didn't even teach for a full year. These are the things people need to know. I'm sorry, I'm calling all this out. She didn't even teach for a full year. So I don't know what to tell you. She used to be a Republican. Now, this is not to say that people can't change, but I'm just here to let you know Elizabeth Warren is not as progressive as she claims to be. Let's go on. And let's not forget how she pointed fingers and tried to say that Bernie Sanders was misogynistic and said that a woman would never be president or can't be president or something like that. Elizabeth Warren is a snake. She stayed in that presidential race. She knew damn well for 2020, she had no chance of winning at that point. And she stayed in the race on Super Tuesday to weaken the support for Bernie Sanders and to divide that vote. There's no doubt in my mind. Some of those people that voted for Elizabeth Warren would have ended up voting for Bernie Sanders, but she stayed in to fuck that up. I'm sorry. She make me feel some kind of way about that. She really does. Let's go on.
Why are you now refusing to have an investigation of the explosion of the Nord Stream pipeline?
And this is the question that continues to come up. Now, if you're looking for that post, that was posted by Jose Vega. He goes on to say his friends, they were there to confront Senator Warren, Ayanna Pressley, and Mayor Wu. Mayor Michelle Wu was there as well. Now, As I told you, a lot of times Elizabeth Warren is applauded because of her position on domestic issues. So much to the point that people tend to turn a blind eye to her foreign policy views. But where will Elizabeth Warren stand on foreign policy? Now, you see, Common Dreams, they actually wrote about this. They were warning people about Elizabeth Warren back in 2019, right before the 2020 election. Listen to this. Elizabeth Warren on war and peace. Warren's troubling foreign policy history includes uncritical support of Israel, supporting sanctions on Venezuela, and vilifying Russia and China as national security threats. But her views are also evolving. Pay attention to the Russia and China piece. So that is important because keep in mind, this was before the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, and she already had a negative opinion about Russia. Let's go on. This is the piece I think that is crucial. In domestic politics, Warren makes a populist appeal to working people with calls for free college tuition, single-payer health care, and breaking up monopolies. In foreign policy, she takes a similar stand, calling for an end to foreign trade pacts such as Trump's renegotiated NAFTA. She wrote in Foreign Affairs, while international economic policies and trade deals have worked gloriously well for elites around the world, they have left working people discouraged and disaffected. Listen to this piece here. Warren's foreign policy lies somewhere in between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. She has a troubling history of uncritical support of Israel, supporting sanctions on Venezuela, and vilifying Russia and China as national security threats. Then it goes on to say her views are evolving. In 2014, Israel launched a horrific war on Gaza, dropping bombs on densely inhabited cities. The United Nations reported that more than 2,100 Palestinians died, compared to 66 Israelis. When challenged by a constituent in 2014 about her support for Israel, Warren responded, "America has a very beautiful relationship with Israel, and we very much need an ally in that part of the world." It gets worse. She opposed making U.S. aid contingent on prohibiting new Israeli settlements on Palestinian land. This is probably the worst of it all right here. She opposed making U.S. aid contingent on prohibiting new Israeli settlements on Palestinian land. For people who chose to vote for her for 2020, I'm pretty sure they were not aware of her opinions about Israel and Palestine. I'm pretty sure they were not knowledgeable about this. Thank you, Edward. You said it right out loud. I'm pretty sure. Let's go on. It gets worse. But in 2018, Warren condemned the Israeli military violence against Palestinians protesting peacefully at the Israel-Gaza border. The Israel lobby has pushed hard for the U.S. Senate to oppose the movement to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. Now, here's a piece to her credit. To her credit, Warren voted against such a resolution February 2019. Most recently, she joined with Sanders and others to oppose Israeli annexation of the West Bank. While Warren is moving in the right direction, I would like to see her make a clear-cut statement opposing Israeli settlements in Palestinian territory. Commit to moving the U.S. embassy back to Tel Aviv and call for an independent, contiguous Palestinian state, which would live peacefully next to a non-aggressive Israel. So this piece here, she still refuses to oppose the settlements, and that is very crucial. Let's go on. When asked about views on Venezuela, This piece right here. Warren co-sponsored a Senate bill proposing to bar U.S. military intervention in Venezuela. But in February, she called for economic sanctions on Venezuela along with increased foreign aid. In this context, sanctions are part of the plan to unseat Maduro. I would like to see Warren take a firm stance against all U.S. intervention, economic, political, or military. When it comes to Russia, China, and North Korea, mainstream Democrats have a long history of trying to sound tough on national defense while attacking Republicans from the right. Unfortunately, Warren is no exception. Last year, as Trump prepared to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Warren issued a bellicose statement. A nuclear-armed North Korea is a threat to the security of the United States, our allies, and the world. This administration's success will be judged on whether it can eliminate Kim's nuclear weapons and verify they are gone. While Trump can be erratic and subject to pressure from his right-wing advisors, at least he is willing to discuss denuclearization of the region. And compare Warren's view with Sanders' statement about the same summit. The meeting represents a positive step in de-escalating tensions between our countries, addressing the threat of North Korea's nuclear weapons and moving towards a more peaceful future. Warren also falls into the Cold War trap of vilifying Russia and China as a danger to Americans. This is her. China is on the rise, using its economic might to bludgeon its way onto the world stage. China is on the rise. Why is that a problem? Why does she have a problem with another country succeeding economically? I've been telling you guys about this. This is what it's really about. It's about the economy. It's about how they're doing economically when comparing them to the United States. They're getting too close. They're a competitor now. And that's not what the United States wanted. When we talked about the Wolfowitz Doctrine, it said the same thing, that no other country should be able to rival the United States. That goes back to the 1990s. That's the Wolfowitz Doctrine. Look it up. Let's go on. She goes on to say, to mask its decline, Russia is provoking the international community with opportunistic harassment and covert attacks. She goes on to claim that both countries invest heavily in their militaries and seek to shape spheres of influence in their own image. Listen to this. Both countries invest heavily in their militaries. So do we. So why is it okay for the U.S. to do it, but it's not okay for them to do it? And last time I checked, Russia and China don't have over 700 bases around the world. We do. You see the problem with these remarks? This is Elizabeth Warren on foreign policy. That's why she doesn't want to answer that question about sending aid, sending money to Ukraine. That's why she doesn't want to answer the question when people say, do you support a call for peace? That's why she doesn't want to answer it. Let's go on. This piece right here. Nowhere does Warren mention that the United States spends more on its military than the next 7 largest countries combined. Russia and China have limited military bases outside their borders, while the United States has over 800. Unfortunately, Warren helps propagate the myths of cunning and fearsome enemies, which are used to justify ever-rising defense budgets and future wars. On foreign policy, Elizabeth Warren needs a lot of work. Now, before I told you this today, how many of you knew that's where she stood on foreign policy? I feel like a lot of people don't know this because the focus with her tends to be on domestic issues. We got to start looking at both. I seriously encourage someone to primary challenge Elizabeth Warren, someone who is anti-war, someone who is anti-imperialist, hopefully someone who's independent or someone who's from a third party. I encourage anybody else. You know, I would like to see, and she has not told me this, I would like to see Jill Stein primary challenge Elizabeth Warren. I would like to see Jill Stein on a debate stage with Elizabeth Warren, especially when it comes to foreign policy. That's what I would like to see. That would be interesting. Interesting. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Aberdeen71. Boop, boop. Deneen, I love that they're getting called out. I do too. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, run against her, Eric. Maybe not. Well, if Jill ran against Elizabeth Warren, she wouldn't be primary challenging her, but she would be challenging her. But somebody needs to challenge Elizabeth Warren. I'm sorry. And not Jeff Deal, okay? Jeff Deal needs to stop running for office. Just stop. You're trying too many positions here. Thank you so much for the super chat, Keel. Elizabeth Warpig. People don't talk about this when they talk about Elizabeth Warren. They talk about her on domestic issues, but they don't talk about how she is on foreign policy. It's interesting to me. Interesting. Okay. I think we're going to go on to the next story here, but kudos to Jose and the peeps doing the damn thing. This next story, it's a little scary. I'm going to show you the example, but it's a little scary. And this happened to Joe Rogan. But first and foremost, go ahead and smash that like button, guys. That helps me with the algo. Thank you. Joe Rogan got a little bit of a surprise. Apparently, there is a Joe Rogan podcast that has had an interview with a guest, just like Joe Rogan does. It sounds like Joe Rogan. It sounds like Sam Altman. But in fact, it's not actually either one of them. We're diving into AI. Listen to this. Joe Rogan sounds the alarm on AI with deep fake podcast. So someone sent this to me yesterday. This came my way and I was like, oh dear. Joe Rogan, one of the biggest podcast personalities on the planet, sat with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman for an episode of his popular podcast show to talk about AI advancements. However, neither Rogan nor Altman actually sat for the conversation. The nearly hour-long episode was generated entirely by ChatGPT, mimicking the distinct tone of Rogan as well as Altman. Here's a picture of Joe Rogan here. Not just in terms of the intellectual verbosity that these two are known for, but also their real voice pattern. Even the Eminem track playing in the episode was generated by an AI tool called 40 Hertz. If you need any precedent for such a stunt, none other than David Guetta played a song by the Grammy-winning rapper at one of his concerts, the entity of which was generated using an AI. So Joe Rogan actually responded to this on Twitter, and he said, "This is going to get very slippery, kids." And he was responding to Verzad here, who actually had posted this and said, yo, what in the actual F for real YouTube? And I'm going to play it for you so you can hear it. Let me go on here and do continuing. While Guetta's musical adventure once again stirred a hot debate around ethics and copyright while using such a tool, Rogan's AI-generated episode takes things to a whole nother level. The Chat GPT responses vocalized for the episode broach a wide range of deep topics like the future of AI, ethical issues, the technical foundations of AI, and the risk to real human jobs. Even dystopian topics like putting a cutting edge controversial AI like Chat GPT into a humanoid android robot and the potential of colonizing Mars were discussed. And the answers were quite enlightening, albeit a tad predictable and overly ambitious. Notably, the episode also discussed Tesla chief Elon Musk's recent unfavorable comments about the impact of AI proliferation. We'll get into that in just a second as well. So, remember a couple of days ago, Elon Musk, along with Andrew Yang, and I think it was also Steve Wozniak, I think was also one of them. They were, telling people that they were going to put a 6-month pause on AI because they said it's becoming too dangerous. But they didn't really go into a lot of detail about what was happening. I'm going to show you that in just a second as well. But I want to show you this episode because this is scary. This is scary. Now, again, let's come out for just a second because I want to show you how you can be duped if you're not paying close attention. Now, this looks like very similar to Joe Rogan's podcast. It says Joe Rogan AI Experience episode number 001, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. But if you're not paying close attention, notice it says Joe Rogan AI Experience. When you look at the channel, this is not Joe Rogan's channel. If you're not paying attention to the number of subscribers, you may totally miss this. This is not, obviously, Joe Rogan has way more than 8.52 thousand subscribers. This is not him. But it looks like it could be. But that's not even the craziest part. Wait till you listen to it. Let me speed up just a little bit to get past the music. Listen to his voice. Listen to this.
By OpenAI. I am not the real Joe Rogan. Let me repeat it once more. I am not Joe Rogan, and the guests are not of the people they portray. This is purely fiction, just for fun, so don't go around making little clips for your TikToks and make the world believe I said things I never said. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as said by the real people they portray. This is purely for entertainment purposes and an experience showcasing the amazing advancements in AI technology. So,
now, does that sound like Joe Rogan to you? That sounds like Joe Rogan to me. And if you don't have that intro at the beginning of the video, and let's say you were just given an audio version of this, would you be able to tell the difference? Let's go on.
Sit back, relax, and let's dive into this AI-generated world. Let's get weird, folks. It's time to welcome our first guest to the show, and I've got to say, this is a big one. We've got none other than the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, joining us today. Sam's been at the forefront of the AI industry for years, and it's an honor to have him on the show. So let's give a warm AI-generated welcome to Sam Altman. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sam, this whole AI-generated podcast thing is pretty wild. It's like we're living in the future, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a strange experience, but it's also incredibly exciting.
Now, by the way, if you're not familiar with Sam Altman, also, if you look him up, that sounds like him too. Kind of weird, huh? Kind of spooky. We'll listen to just a little bit more and then we'll go on.
Advancements in AI technology have come a long way, and it's amazing to see what we can achieve with the tools we already have at our disposal.
So let's dive right in. Your company just released a new tool called ChatGPT. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what it does?
Sure. So ChatGPT is an AI language model that's been trained on a massive amount of text data. What this means is that it's able to generate text that's almost indistinguishable from text written by like a human. It does this by using a process called deep learning, where it's been trained on a massive data set of text, and it's able to use that training to generate new text that's coherent and grammatically correct. And the cool thing is that the more data it's trained on, the more accurate and diverse its responses can be.
And that's what they used for this, was the chat GPT, right? So we'll play a little bit more, and then I want you to hear the response of a professor from NYU about why he also agreed with the 6-month pause of AI.
That's insane. So let's say I ask ChatGPT a question right now. It's going to use that deep learning process to generate an answer on the spot?
Exactly. And what's even more impressive is that it can also generate answers in a conversational style, which is why it's able to generate a podcast like this. It's able to keep track of the conversation and generate responses that are relevant to the conversation at hand.
Wow, that's...
So just FYI, guys, like, these are not voice actors. This is something, all of this apparently can be done by Chat GPT. So he just explained to you how it works. I could try to do that falsification. Sabby should have Professor Emily M. Bender on. She literally studies this. I could do that. Thank you so much. Kind of scary, huh? A little bit, maybe. Now, what I want to warn you about, though, I'm not trying to scare you, but what I'm trying to warn you is that this is not the first time someone has tried to do a copycat of Joe Rogan. Apparently, there was an issue with TikTok doing something similar, not as close as this, but similar. Listen to this. Now, this article was posted February 15th of this year. TikTok removes viral video ad of suspected Joe Rogan AI deep fake. So let's go on here. So it's not I guess people just want to keep impersonating Joe Rogan. If you've been on TikTok remotely lately, you might have been served a video advertisement featuring Joe Rogan and one of his guests on his immensely popular podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. In that clip, Rogan boasts about a libido booster for men. The supplement was called Alpha Grind, going so far as to tell listeners exactly what to type in to find the product on Amazon. Boy, this is something. Rogan is one of the most popular podcasters out there with over 10 million listeners per episode of his show. A brand endorsement like that would be a big get and likely a very expensive one for any product. Here's the problem. Boop. Rogan did not endorse Alpha Grind on his show. The clip featured in the TikTok video ad is a likely deep fake, an AI creation with the intent to make it appear as if Rogan endorsed the product in order to boost sales. There could have been a lawsuit in reference to that you used someone else's image to sell a product without their permission. Let's go on. Now, it was shared here on Twitter. It says, breaking, this AI deepfake video rendering of Joe Rogan is going viral on TikTok. This is the start of massive waves of new scams and misinformation. If only there was a decentralized GPU compute rendering network that can authenticate province for IP. Let me see if it lets me play. Let's see.
There's a category of supplements that are very interesting, work very well to increase testosterone by about 100.
I'm just going to mute it for just a sec. Okay.
That Alpha Grind product that's all over TikTok, if you go to Amazon and you type in libido booster for men, you're going
So you guys see this?
to find it right at the top.
I just muted it for us because of the music.
Difference down there.
It stimulates the testes, if you got those, to make more testosterone or estrogen.
Yo, look, watch.
There's a category of supplements that are very interesting, work very well to increase testosterone by about 100 to 200 points.
Well, look, that Alpha Grind product.
Okay, so apparently this is not Joe Rogan. Do you guys see the problem? Like, he never advertised this product on his show, but they were able to create a deep fake to make it look like it was him. It's not him. But even if you watch his mouth, let's watch his mouth. Come back here for just a second.
Well, look, that Alpha Grind product is all.
If you watch his mouth is moving to the words. So it seems like it is him. Very interesting. So like I said, this is not the first time. Now, it goes on to say here, the video ad was posted and promoted on TikTok by a user going by the name of Mike Smith Trainer. When Mashable first reviewed the TikTok account, the publicly posted video consisted of testimonial clips of supposed everyday Alpha Grind consumers. As of publishing time, the Mike Smith Trainer account is no longer accessible on TikTok. A TikTok spokesperson confirmed to Mashable that the company removed these videos under the harmful misinformation policy. It says TikTok also banned the account. It's kind of scary in a way, because it's like anyone can do that. And I like these videos. If you guys haven't seen, there are videos on Twitter, and the account is Turncoat Dawn. So Turncoat Dawn, he makes these videos where he'll insert other people like onto CNN segments. Like he's done this with me. He's done it with Jimmy Dore to make it seem like we were on CNN or MSNBC. I don't know how he does it, but those are a little bit more obvious that it's not real. But there are concerns in reference to AI. And here is an NYU professor that is going to express why he agreed with Andrew Yang and with Elon Musk to put a 6-month pause on AI. Listen to this.
But part of the reason that some of us wrote this letter is to put some pressure on.
Oh, I think we'll need a volume booster on this one, Eric. Yeah. His name is Gary Marcus.
Governments and the companies realize that this is no joke.
Our next guest is the author of Rebooting AI and jumped on board signing the letter. We'll share more about why. Gary Marcus joins us, New York University professor. He's also founded Geometric Intelligence, a machine learning startup that Uber acquired.
I think they're moving a little bit faster in Europe than they are here. But part of the reason that some of us wrote this letter is to put some pressure on to make governments and the companies realize that this is no joke, that there are risks from these things. There are immediate short-term risks around.
Pause right here. Okay, everybody, look at this part. Key points from Gary Marcus in reference to AI concerns. The critical variable is not intelligence, but power. Power leads to access, which has potential to create serious, immediate problems. So these were the red flags here for Gary Marcus. Let's go on.
Misinformation at wide scale that might disrupt democracy, much more plausible and much more of it than we've ever seen before. There are risks around cybersecurity, people using these tools to acquire people's credentials and do all kinds of things once they have those credentials. There are longer term risks that we just don't understand what these machines can do. And we don't know how to make them align with human desire. So there are many, many issues to worry about. And we've never seen anything scaled out so fast before. And we're also seeing that the corporates are, as usual, more interested in profits than human safety. And so we have to do something. And that's why a bunch of us signed this letter. I don't know if the particular thing that we called for will actually happen, but we've raised public awareness more than I've ever seen on this issue. I've been on television nonstop for the last couple of days talking about it. I think it's just absolutely critical that people in society realize that we can't wait on this. We need regulation that's akin, for example, to medicine, where you have to make a safety case. You can't just give a new drug to 100 million people without having made that safety case.
Pause right here. More key points from Gary Marcus. Superintelligence may or may not be imminent, but there's a lot to be worried about either way. You don't have to be super intelligent to create serious problems. So it sounds like also one of the issues that he had was how fast the rollout happened. And he compared it to pharma, that you have an FDA for a reason to test out these prescription drugs to make sure that it's safe for the public. It sounds like, according to him, they haven't had those safety tests and they're trying to roll it out too fast. And that's what it seems like he's concerned about. But it also kind of sounds like to me that something must have happened that really made them very concerned. And I feel like if something did happen, they're not telling us what that something is for whatever reason. But I did find it to be somewhat strange that just out of nowhere, they would say, oh, okay, this seems to be rolling out a little bit too fast, and we might need to input some safety measures. Everybody pause AI for 6 months. Okay. But what happened? I still feel like there's something they're not saying. And maybe it's because they don't want to scare people, right? Nolan says, that's what I was thinking, Sabby. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Let's go on.
Well, I wonder, Gary, what 6 months buys you? I mean, is that enough time for policy to get crafted, or is it an attempt to convince markets to slow down? Because the capital flow, we can tell you on a business network, is unrelenting.
Yeah, I don't expect the capital flow to slow down, but we didn't actually call for a ban on all research. We called for a ban on these particular things, scaling up these particular models that themselves are unreliable. If you've ever used them to write your own biography, you know that they will lie about you. They provide both they can be used to make deliberate misinformation. Even accidentally, they make a lot of misinformation. So we have all those problems. So we're saying, fine, research all of those things. Just don't make a bigger version of this thing we already know is problematic and risky.
So he says, again, we already know if you make a bigger version of what we already have, we already know it's problematic and risky, but they don't tell you why it's problematic and risky. See, that's the thing. Like, they're not telling us everything. Now, here are some of the recommendations here in reference to how they can accelerate. Let me see. Pause it right about there. How they can accelerate development. So I don't think they didn't pause here long enough. I just want to show you. It says AI development. Policymakers can accelerate development by creating new and capable regulatory authorities. I would be surprised they don't have that already, but okay. Oversight and tracking of AI systems and large pools of computational capability. Watermarking systems to help distinguish real from synthetic and to track model leaks. Again, you would think they have this already. Like, that's the part that is a little bit odd. And then this piece here, he says they can also accelerate development by creating new and capable regulatory authorities. Oh, wait a minute. It took me back. There's another piece here I wanted to. It's the auditing part. Yeah. Auditing and certification ecosystem. Mitigating liability for AI caused harm. And developing robust public funding for technical AI safety research. It's just, I'm sorry, but when I look at these recommendations, especially this one here, the developing a public funding for technical safety research, you would have thought they would have done that already. That's the part that's weird to me. But he has one more piece here. I want to finish this part up here.
This thing we already know is problematic and risky. OpenAI has acknowledged that there are all these risks and haven't given any solution. They're also completely opaque about how the systems actually work, which makes it very hard for the scientific community to do anything about it. So we can use this time to both help with regulation and also to help research at other approaches to AI that might not have the same risks.
Okay, so putting aside the pause, which I'm not sure is so realistic, Gary, how do you make AI safe?
So I think we need a pause. I think that's part of it. I think we need to have regulation like we have around medicine, where you have to make a safety case. We may need to have a pause on widespread deployment, even if research carries on, until we figure out what are the safety measures.
But when he says we need to have a pause, the question, when she's asking you, like, how do you make it safe? Notice his response is, well, we need to have a pause. But while you have that pause, what else are you doing to make it safe? I think that's the thing that's, to me, is just kind of like, Okay, great. We already know you need to have a pause. But what else are you going to do during that period to make sure that it is safe? It sounds like to me he don't really know.
Probably going to need new technologies in order, for example, to pick up on the high volume misinformation that I anticipate. So just like we had to build new technologies for detecting spam and different kinds of viruses and stuff like that, we have to build new tech too.
Why does he anticipate a lot of misinformation? Why does he anticipate that? See, they're not telling you. There's key components to this that I feel like they are leaving out. Like he says that he anticipates a lot of misinformation to happen with AI, but he doesn't tell you why. I don't know, man. Let him finish.
6 months buys us some time to do that. I don't know that we will actually implement the pause, but we must do something here.
Okay. You guys take it how you want to take it. If you haven't had a chance to answer that poll, go ahead and do so. Do not let me influence you. But it does seem like to me, I don't know. I feel like there's something they're leaving out there. I feel like there's something they're leaving out. But yes, Joe Rogan, but not Joe Rogan. Oh boy. Let me go to some of the comments here. JB says, wow, Sabby, this can be used to incriminate innocent people. I can see the alphabet people using this against whistleblowers, etc. Oh no. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. You're making a big difference for the better, Sabby. Much appreciated. Thank you, Rob. Bart, deepfake is the sincerest form of flattery. Thank you for the super chat, GDNPB. Thank you, Sabby. Thank you so much. And thank you for the super chat, Zach. A pause only hurts the poor who lose access, yet moneyed quietly race ahead. Now imagine the horrific unrelated laws Dementia Joe and company would pass. There you go. There you go. I really think they're trying to make a push for that Restrict Act still, especially considering what just happened with the leak of the Pentagon documents. But moving on, moving on. All right, we're going to our next story, and this is in reference to Ron DeSantis quietly signed a bill. Yes, he did. Oh boy. You see, this is one of those things where I continue to tell people we need to pay attention to what's happening with local politics. I do feel like while mainstream media had a lot of people focused on Trump's legal issues, I feel like quietly behind the scenes, you had state lawmakers passing legislation and signing legislation that could really hurt people in their state. And at the same time, I feel like a lot of people weren't paying attention to it because the media had you so focused on Donald Trump. And this is one of those examples. And if you have not heard this, hold on to your seatbelt for this one. Regardless of how you feel about a woman's right to choose or not, this measure is risky. And I'm going to explain to you why. So in recent news, Florida's legislature passes a 6-week abortion ban. 6 weeks. We're going to get into a little bit of the details here. Florida's Republican-dominated legislature passed a ban on most abortions after 6 weeks Thursday, sending the bill to Governor Ron DeSantis, who has said he would sign it. By the way, he did sign it. We'll get to that. Final passage came after a marathon floor hearing in the State House, which passed the proposal largely along party lines in a 70-40 vote after the Senate passed it on April 3rd. Oh, boy. Now, the name of this bill is called SB 300, just in case you want to look this up on your own. SB 300. It says here, it capped off what has been a hugely contentious process to pass the legislation, SB 300, which DeSantis has signaled support for, but it puts him in a tricky political position. He is considering a 2024 bid for president, but most public polling show a 6-week abortion ban is unpopular among both political parties. This is the piece everybody needs to pay attention to. Yet at the same time, entering a Republican presidential primary on the heels of vetoing or opposing legislation that would expand abortion restrictions risk running against a key tenet of the GOP platform. And here are protesters outside here. This is the piece I want to focus on, the details here. The measure would ban abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy, with new exceptions for rape and incest up until 15 weeks. The measure would not change the exceptions for the life and health of the mother up until 15 weeks that are in current law. The new exemptions were sought by Republican Senate President Kathleen Passidomo and agreed to by other Republicans. The bill also includes $25 million to expand Florida Pregnancy Care Network, a statewide network of nonprofit groups that offer pregnancy support services. Let me explain to you why the 6 weeks is problematic for those who are not aware. It is not uncommon for a woman to not know that she is pregnant at 6 weeks. Now, some of you may wonder, how can that be? How can that be? Wouldn't she know when she misses her period, her menstrual cycle? Not necessarily. If you are a female that does not have a regular menstrual cycle, you may not notice. Not to mention that some women have been known to still have their menstrual cycle while they are pregnant. These things happen. We need to talk about this. But not only that, even if you are one of those that has it regularly, that still doesn't mean that you would know at 6 weeks. So this is a big problem. And all I can say is this. Listen, I grew up during a time when teen pregnancy was a big issue in this country. Teen pregnancy rates have gone down because of access to contraception, birth control, and education about sex. Let's just be real. I have known teenagers that had to have an abortion. And one of the things that I see happening with this is that once again, teen pregnancy rates are going to increase. Watch. You never know the reason. And honestly, I don't need to know your reason why you need to have one. It's really none of my business. But some people have had to have one because of medical reasons. But 6 weeks is risky. Now, I want to take you to this clip here from CNN because they discussed this, or excuse me, MSNBC, because they discussed this as well on Morning Joe. Let's get into it.
Also in Florida today, Governor Ron DeSantis signed a 6-week abortion ban into law. Did that last night. In a move that may underscore just how controversial the bill is, DeSantis announced the decision with a tweet just after 11 p.m., hours after the ban was approved by the Republican-controlled state legislature. Just 2 out of 28 Republicans in the Florida Senate voted against the bill, which does make exceptions for pregnancies involving rape or incest up until
that piece. I did want you to hear that there were 2 Republicans that voted against it.
Until 15 weeks. Those exceptions, however, will only be allowed if a woman has documentation like a restraining order or a police report.
This is another big part of the problem. The exceptions in reference to sexual assault must have documentation, police report, restraining order. This is going to cause a slippery slope of things because I'm just going to be honest with you. Trusting someone to have a police report to say that, yes, this person was a victim of sexual assault. Most incidents of sexual assault are not reported. Not to mention, we did a whole panel on this show last year where we talked about the statistics of police departments that don't even process rape kits. They just throw them out. 2, just because someone has a police report doesn't mean that they were actually assaulted. This is a problem. I'm just going to keep it real. This is a slippery slope. Because like I told you, usually these incidents are not investigated in the way that they should be. A lot of the police departments get rid of the rape kits. So what is that piece of paper going to do for you? And why should you have to have the piece of paper? This is bad. This is bad. This piece here, exceptions for life / health of the mother up to 15 weeks. What happens to the women who are pregnant that have health issues after the 15 weeks? There was just 5 women in Texas who announced they were suing the state of Texas because they ran into that particular issue where they had complications after that time period and the state would not allow them to have an abortion. This is scary. This is very scary. Let's go on a little bit.
The bill does not change current exemptions for the life and health of the mother, still, though, up to 15 weeks. The new law will only take effect if the state's current 15-week ban is upheld. That ban, which Desantis signed into law last year, is the subject of an ongoing legal challenge before Florida's conservative-controlled Supreme Court. So, Jen Palmieri, this is just another chapter in what we've seen really just in the last couple of weeks, but in the last almost year now since the overturning of Roe. In Wisconsin, in the state legislature, abortion was a central issue. That Texas decision by a judge out there really putting on hold or banning the abortion pill. And now this in Florida, a 6-week extreme abortion ban.
And I love that DeSantis tweets this after 11 o'clock at night as if then people aren't going to notice.
Yes, I have to mention this here. I almost did forget to mention is that Ron DeSantis signed this bill in a private meeting at night. Kid you not.
But recall the 15-week ban, which that's also what the Mississippi law was in the Dobbs case. 15-week ban a year and a half ago we thought was extreme. Lindsey Graham offered that as the alternative, the moderate alternative, you recall, in the midterms. And even though politics is clearly against the Republicans on this, like you see it you see it in Wisconsin, we saw it in the midterms. Every week it seems there's another example of why it's bad politics for them. He then goes with a 6-week ban because he thinks that's going to be popular in a Republican presidential primary. And there is the vice. And the politics of this are clear, but it's also, we need to remember the impact, the rulings on the abortion pills, the impact that this is having on women. I mean, you just read off the list. If there is a rape or incest, how onerous it is for the woman to prove that. But when you look at the politics, the Republicans intellectually will be saying, we've seen reporting on this, we know we have a problem here, we know that the abortion positions are too extreme, but then you have people like DeSantis, number 2 in the presidential primary, pushing forward with a more extreme ban.
If he is still considering running for president in 2024, I do not believe that this would work in his favor. If this is his idea for the rest of the country, I do not feel that it is actually going to help him. All you have to do is look at the polls. The polls show that now, when it comes to abortion, it's not just Democrats, even though some Democrats oppose it. It's not just Democrats. There are also Republicans who agree with the woman's right to choose. You have to look no further than looking at a red state like Kansas that just chose to protect a woman's right to choose. Now, we went through this when we were going through the ballot initiative states. I still have a couple to go through. When we went to Kansas, we got to that state. Remember, that was one of the key measures that I honed in on. A red state chose to protect a woman's right to choose. I don't think this is going to be the popular issue that Ron DeSantis thinks is going to be to help him win. I don't think that would help him win. Not today. Not today. We'll play a little bit more, and then I have something else I want to show you in reference to this as well. I'm going to show you that bill.
And Joe, if Ron DeSantis does run for president, if he does somehow find his way to the nomination, good luck pivoting to the general after this, a 6-week abortion ban, which is something like a 15% position nationally. But let's look at the state of Florida and how it's changed even since you were in Congress there. What do you make of this 6-week ban now in your home state?
Well, it's going to be a problem for Ron DeSantis, like you said, or any Republican that gets behind this in a general election. We've seen this time and time again. The Republicans know what the politics are for an abortion ban in a general election, and Republicans apparently don't care. And so Florida is one of those states, again, we always think of it as a Republican state, and we've always thought of it as a Republican state. And then Barack Obama wins it. I think Bill Clinton won it one of the 2 times that he ran. And I suspect, again, right now it's breaking red. Trump obviously won by 3 or 4 points there. But I will tell you, there are a lot of people in Florida, as everybody watching this show knows, that moves down from the Northeast, that moves down from the Midwest, that moves down from places that have a much more moderate view of the issue of abortion. And they move forward anyway. Of course, as you noted, it's why he signed it at 11 o'clock at night. I suspect if this had come out right after the Dobbs decision, before Republicans understood the wicked backlash that they're getting politically on these near abortion bans, some of these more extreme bills, he may have signed it in the middle of the day, brought legislators around, but instead signed it at 11 o'clock last night and tweeted out the picture. That is not a man who wants this to be front and center of the news today, but it is. Eugene Robinson. I'm in a different time zone here. Gotcha. Eugene Robinson. You look at Wisconsin. Here's a state that I was calling. I think we were all calling, perhaps the tightest swing state in America.
But I don't think it's fair to make the comparison between Wisconsin and Florida, because I have to just flat out say this. Florida is not a swing state. Okay. It may have been back when Obama won. Guys, that was a long time. That was 2008. That was a long time ago. And if I remember correctly, I don't think Obama won Florida in 2012. I have to go back and check. But it's not a swing state anymore. Florida is a red state. And I think MSNBC and CNN, they just need to accept that. That is exactly what it is now, regardless of how many people from the Northeast are moving down to Florida, okay? What Joe's trying to tell you. It's red. Exactly, Ryan. Florida is red. So remember, Ron DeSantis just won re-election, last year? So if people were in Florida, if they were that concerned about this, remember, they voted for him again. Overwhelmingly. It's not like it was close between him and Rick. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Now, I want to show you something in reference to this measure in particular, because I always like to point people to the legislation itself. If you go to the Florida House of Representatives website, you can take a look at this for yourself. Let me see if it'll let me go a little bit. Yeah, because the text is mad small. There we go. Again, the name of the bill is SB 300, Pregnancy and Parenting Support. And it says here, citing this act as the Heartbeat Protection Act, requiring the Department of Health to contract for the management and delivery of parenting support services. In addition to pregnancy support services, prohibiting physicians from knowingly performing or inducing a termination of pregnancy after gestational age of the fetus is determined to be more than 6 weeks rather than 15 weeks, with exceptions, providing an exception if the woman obtaining the abortion is doing so because she is the victim of sexual assault or human trafficking, subject to certain conditions, requiring that medications intended for use in a medical abortion be dispensed in person by a physician, etc. So now you got them telling doctors how to do their jobs. And then we go on here. And it shows you the Senate referrals on the health policy, 7 yay, 4 nay. On the fiscal policy, 12 yay, 7 nay. But that is the bill. So if you live in Florida, please visit this website. You can see other bills that they're proposing now as well, which I think is important that you keep up to date with this because you don't know what else is coming down the pipe. But I will go on to say this as well. This is very scary. I just told you some of the problems that are going to happen with this type of bill. I also want to show you the spread across the South, because this is something I predicted when Texas made their move. Now, if we go back up to the top here, this video, they show it right up here at the top. If we press play. Let me see if I can get back to it because it had that map. It's hard to see the line on this video for some reason. I hate these kind of videos when they do it like this. Let me see if I can restart it. Oh, here we go.
Of this region, you've got Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana with all-out bans.
Right there. This is what I wanted you guys to see. Now let's remember, we started with Texas. I predicted this would happen, that it would make its way east. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. Now you have Florida. South Carolina is coming up next. And I lived in South Carolina. I lived in Georgia. I would not be surprised if South Carolina were to implement something like this as well. When we talk about the South, there's the deep South, right? North Carolina might be a little bit more lenient because North Carolina has been moving a little bit more bluish, maybe baby blue, Carolina blue, as they like to call it. South Carolina is still definitely conservative as hell. I'm just telling you from experience. So I can see South Carolina picking that up. Then we have right above Mississippi and Alabama, you have Tennessee. Come up here for a little bit. You have Tennessee. I can see Tennessee maybe swinging that way. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why I said I didn't want this to be left up to the states, because I knew that all it would take is one state in the South to implement a strict version of this, and it will spread to the other southern states. Now, I'm in Massachusetts. Some would say that I'm safe, but not everybody lives here. Not everybody lives in Massachusetts. Not everybody lives in California. And people shouldn't have to move to these states just so that they can feel safe about their right to choose. Look at the spread.
Got Georgia with a heartbeat ban, which is very similar, around 6 weeks, right? And now with Florida passing the 6-week ban, that essentially turns this entire area into a place where it's going to be really, really difficult for women to access abortion care. It means women in Florida are now having to travel over several state lines, likely, in order to get that kind of access. And Democrats say, look, at 6 weeks, a lot of folks don't know that they are pregnant. Republicans, on the other hand, are celebrating this for the most part. Some are even telling me that this 6-week ban did not go far enough. Some would like to see it go further, look a little bit more like those other states I mentioned that have those all-out bans. But at the end of the day, today we saw a very heated day in Tallahassee here, where protesters came to the Capitol. They were demonstrating here outside of the chamber and inside as well. In fact, at one moment, the speaker had to clear out the gallery because of the tensions inside. Take a look.
You have responsibilities to maintain the decorum in the Florida House. If you can't maintain the decorum, I will ask the sergeant to escort you to a room where you can watch the proceedings on the television.
Some Democratic lawmakers also joined protesters out here for a few moments. There's not much Democrats can do right now because they are the minority here, though some have talked to me about trying to propose potentially getting this on the ballot as a ballot proposition in 2024 and leaving it to the voters. So that might be a difficult challenge because of the way Florida structures those rules. So what the path ahead looks like for those against this bill, not so clear, Hallie.
Well, President Biden is continuing his video.
Okay, so that's important for people to see. There was a video, I was trying to find it. I don't know what I did with it, but there was a video on TikTok that I showed a while back where it was a young woman explaining that she really believed that this overturn of Roe v. Wade from the Supreme Court, that this was actually more about capitalism and about creating more workers. They want you to have more babies so they'll have more workers, because the child birth rate is declining in this country, particularly among those that are part of my generation, that are millennials, and those that are Gen Z as well, because people just can't afford to have any damn kids. Like, that's just a big reality of it. So as the child birth rate declines, that means that there are less potential workers available in the future, less people to do the labor. And she had a great layout of it. I just couldn't find the video, but sorry about that. But everyone needs to pay attention to what's happening here. Need to pay attention. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. You can't give a new drug to the people without testing it, but that's exactly what we did. Also, we need an amendment mandating politicians at every level of government host town halls, mandates providing a microphone for those who wish to speak with no pre-screened questions, giving each constituent a minimum of 10 minutes to speak, with clock stopping when politicians speak so they can't run it out. Restarts when we talk. I like that idea. And thanks for this tip as well. Okay, women's rights groups. Florida is a CBI state for amendments to the Florida Constitution. As the late great Ed Schultz used to say at the start of every show, let's get to work. Speaking of which, Ed was stopped at the last minute by Phil Griffin of MSBSC from covering Bernie's 2016 campaign launch. I take it, Sabby, you will have no such impediments this coming Wednesday. And thank you for this tip as well. 01, Wisconsin in 08. Florida CBI amendments requires 60% approval. Floridians didn't just ratify to raise minimum wage, but fully reinstated voting rights for ex-felons. Speaking of which, corrupt corporate Kathy Hochul, notice the first letters of these words I used, did this big show out of women leaders in New York State. Herself, Gillibrand, A.G. James, and Senate State Majority Leader Cousins speaking of protecting abortion. Yet not too long ago, she fought like hell and lost to get her judge approved as Chief Justice to the highest court in New York, the New York State Court of Appeals. Also, shouldn't all of those women leaders in New York State march to Chuck's office last year when Dems controlled the House and demanded he bring this up for a vote? Bingo. Bingo. I still go back to the fact that they had the majority and they were not serious about codifying Roe v. Wade into law. Neither was Barack Obama, even though he promised to do it, then took it back. Neither was Bill Clinton. And here we are. This is not just on the Republicans. The Democratic Party is to blame for this as well. All righty. Let me make sure I'm getting these. Thank you for the super chat. Zach, note it's clear misinfo is used by liars and fools. Angela says, this is an attack on the poor. The rich will be able to abort all day long. That's right. Well, especially wealthy women, they'll be able to travel outside the country and get these done as they have before. When it was illegal in the country, they still were able to get them done. Thank you for this super chat, Zach. If only there existed a large group of voters and activists dedicated to my body, my choice. Unfortunately, we're surrounded by bodily autonomy haters. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself, Zach. Scientific lens, somebody didn't codify Roe when they promised to. Bing, 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 bing. There you go. All right. We're moving on to our last story here, which is about Lula. He is criticizing the Biden administration in reference to Russia and Ukraine, and I don't blame him. Lula is out here calling for a call for peace, as many others are. I have two clips I want to show you where he is actually pointing fingers at the Biden administration, the United States government, for continuing to send weapons to Ukraine. Let's start with this first one here. It says Lula says European Union has now entered directly into the conflict. Listen to this clip. You'll have to read the subtitles here because he is speaking in, oh, sorry about that. I'm trying to make it bigger. Here we go.
Como é que a gente vai conseguir paz na Rússia e na Ucrânia se ninguém está falando em paz? Todo mundo só está falando em guerra. Todo mundo só está falando em armas para a Ucrânia, sabe, atacar a Rússia ou a OTAN colocar fronteira no território russo. Então o que nós precisamos encontrar? Países que queiram.
I have to start this over. I'm sorry. It went way faster than I thought. Aaron, could you do volume booster for this, I think? Or maybe it was just me. Maybe it's just me. Okay, maybe not. I'll just play it. Just listen to this, guys.
Como é que a gente vai conseguir paz na Rússia e na Ucrânia se ninguém está falando em paz? Todo mundo só está falando em guerra.
Okay, what he said there was, how are we going to achieve peace with Russia and Ukraine if nobody's talking about peace and everyone is just talking about war? Bingo. And as those documents that we just saw well, we didn't just see, excuse me, those documents that we were just told about in reference to the ones that were leaked from the Pentagon, one of the pieces of information that was told to us about those documents was the fact that it was already decided that this was going to be one of those never-ending wars, that they were not looking to call for any type of peace in reference to Russia and Ukraine. This is something that Julian Assange has spoken about, right? Where he said the goal is not to actually win the war. The goal is to have a never-ending war. And you have this system that you continue, excuse me, I'm all over the place today. You have this system that you continue to funnel money through. So it becomes a money laundering scheme. So because of those leaked documents, we now know that there was never any intention on trying to find any type of peaceful resolution for this war, that it was going to be, again, another never-ending war. Let's continue.
Todo mundo está falando dar mais armas para a Ucrânia, sabe, atacar a Rússia ou a OTAN colocar fronteira no território russo. Então o que nós precisamos encontrar? Países que queiram paz. A China quer paz, o Brasil quer paz.
He goes on to say China wants peace, Brazil wants peace, right? So it seems like it's mainly us. It's mainly the United States government that doesn't want the peace, right? He's speaking facts.
A Indonésia quer paz, a Índia quer paz. Então nós temos que juntar esses países.
So to bring those countries together, so bring together China, bring together Brazil, Indonesia, and India, bring them together to make a peace proposal for Russia and Ukraine.
Fazer uma proposta de paz para a Rússia e para a Ucrânia. Estou convencido que a União Europeia, que sempre jogou um papel importante, porque a União Europeia sempre foi um ponto de equilíbrio, né? Ela nunca participava diretamente dos conflitos, ela agora entrou diretamente no conflito.
There you go.
O companheiro Olaf Scholz, chanceler da Alemanha, foi ao Brasil, pedir para que o Brasil vendesse, sabe, mísseis para.
Okay, let's go back here for a little bit second, because he's talking about how the European Union, this is important too, they usually do not participate directly in these conflicts. Now, all of a sudden, they are.
A União Europeia sempre foi um ponto de equilíbrio, né? Ela nunca participava diretamente dos conflitos, ela agora entrou diretamente no conflito. Quando o companheiro Olaf Scholz, chanceler da Alemanha, foi ao Brasil pedir para que o Brasil vendesse.
Okay, so yes, Germany approached Brazil to sell missiles. And remember, that was something we talked about this a while back where Lula pushed back on it and said no. So now the United States government has a country like Germany doing their bidding to try to get them to convince Brazil to continue on with this war.
Sabe, mísseis para que ele pudesse entregar para a Ucrânia. Eu disse que não ia vender os mísseis porque o Brasil não quer entrar na guerra.
I heard about that.
O Brasil quer.
They don't want to get involved. Brazil wants peace, he said. And then remember, Africa said that they would remain neutral. And it was actually Macron from France who pressured African leaders and told them that they need to pick a side. Like, no, you can't be neutral. You got to pick a side. I have no doubt that Germany would not have chosen to send those Leopard tanks into Ukraine had it not been for the pressure that came from the United States government. And then you have Germany going to Brazil and telling them to send them missiles.
Paz. Então, eu estou obcecado em conversar com as pessoas para encontrar um jeito de paz. Eu acho que os russos querem paz, eu acho que a Ucrânia quer paz, mais do que querer. O mundo precisa de paz.
He said the world needs peace. And he said that both Russia and Ukraine want peace. Both Russians and Ukrainians want peace. But you know who doesn't want peace? NATO in the military-industrial complex. Northrop Grumman doesn't want peace. Lockheed Martin, they don't want peace either. So this is important to note. Now, the next one here. Oh, here we go. The next one here, it's another clip from Lula. Let me go ahead and set this up because I don't want it to start because this one's pretty short. So you have to pay attention to what he says here, where he also talks about the United States government's role in sending weapons to Ukraine. Listen to this.
É preciso ter paciência para conversar com o presidente da Rússia. É preciso ter paciência para conversar com o presidente da Ucrânia. Mas é preciso, sobretudo, convencer os países que estão fornecendo armas, incentivando a guerra, a pararem. Eu acho que a China tem um papel muito importante. Eu continuo reiterando que a China possivelmente seja o papel mais importante. Agora, outro país importante é os Estados Unidos. Ou seja, é preciso que os Estados Unidos parem de incentivar a guerra e comecem a falar em paz. É preciso que a União Europeia comece a falar em paz para a gente poder convencer o Putin e o Zelensky de que a.
So what he's telling you here is that the United States government and the European Union need to start promoting peace because otherwise, you know, Putin and Zelensky are not really going to come to this decision on their own. But if they had that push from the European Union and from the United States government, then that would lead them in that direction. But as long as you have the US government continuing to send weapons to Ukraine, according to Lula, that is the United States government continuing to encourage the war instead of them encouraging peace. And I think that is so well put. I agree with him 100% there. You keep sending people weapons. You don't send people weapons to tell them to say, okay, let's call for peace. Let's call for a truce. When you send someone weapons, you're telling them to fight. There's no way to sugarcoat that. If you are sending them weapons, you are telling them to fight. No other way to put it.
Paz interessa a todo mundo e a guerra só está interessando por enquanto aos dois. É preciso ter paciência para conversar com o presidente da Rússia. É preciso ter paciência para conversar com o presidente da Ucrânia. Mas é preciso, sobretudo, convencer os países que estão fornecendo armas, incentivando a guerra, a pararem. Eu acho que a China tem um papel muito importante.
You have to convince the countries that are supplying the weapons to stop it because they're encouraging the war to continue. And the longer this war continues, the more people are going to die. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. When you hear people make these statements that they want them to fight until the last Ukrainian is standing, do you know what that really means? They're really saying, yeah, if everybody dies, whatever, so what? That's what that really means.
Portanto, eu continuo reiterando que a China possivelmente seja o papel mais importante. Agora, outro país importante é os Estados Unidos, ou seja, é preciso que os Estados Unidos parem de incentivar a guerra e
The United States needs to stop encouraging the war and start talking about peace. So now you have all of these other countries. You have Brazil, China, you have Indonesia, you have India, like he just told you. They're like, you know what? We're not going to wait for the United States to do the right thing. We are going to collaborate with each other and we're going to do the right thing. And I bet you nothing like that pisses off the US government more than anything. To see these other countries come together and form some type of community and solidarity to call for peace in reference to this war. Because the thing is, like I said, like those documents revealed, that was not a part of the plan. It was to continue the war. We weren't supposed to know about that, but now we do. Now, Glenn Greenwald, he also chimed in on this in reference to the letter that came from Brazilian Congress. He said, close to 100 members of the Brazilian Congress, including almost all those elected from Lula's party, and many others, write a letter to Biden administration urging that he cease his attempts to prosecute and extradite Julian Assange. So this is in reference to the Assange thing here too. They are just very more, here's the copy of that letter here. They're more left in this sense. But I bring this up as well is because close to 100 members, and you need to think about the people who signed that letter in reference to Julian Assange in our Congress. There weren't even 50 people who signed that letter, not even 20. This is the letter that Rashida Tlaib initiated. There weren't even 20 people who signed that letter. And here you have Brazil, close to 100 members sign the letter. This is very important. Now, why do I bring this up? Because again, it was Julian Assange who told us, I'll try to see if I can find that video really quick. It was Julian Assange who told us that the goal is not necessarily to win these wars. The goal is to have a never-ending war. That's the real goal. It's not really about winning. And I wish more people understood that. Now, Common Dreams had a great article here, I think, as well, in reference to when does it end? Will it never stop? From forever war to eternal war. When it comes to the war in Ukraine, there is a widely shared sense that it's going to last and last and last some more. Now, this article was written April 11th. This piece here. A year and a half later, it's worth reflecting on where the United States stands when it comes to both that forever war against terrorism and war generally. As it happens, the war on terror is anything but ended, even if it's being overshadowed by the war in Ukraine and simmering conflicts around the globe, all too often involving the United States. In fact, it now seems as if this country is moving at breakneck speed out of the era of forever war and into what might be thought of as the era of eternal war. This piece right here. Now it goes into Russia and China here, but I want to get to this piece right here. As of early March, the United States, one of more than 50 countries offering some form of support, had allocated aid to Ukraine on 33 separate occasions. It's 33 at this point, amounting to more than 113 billion worth of humanitarian, military, and financial assistance. In the process, the Biden administration has agreed to provide increasingly lethal weaponry, including Bradley fighting vehicles, Patriot missile batteries, and Abrams tanks, while pressure for even more powerful weaponry like Army tactical missile systems and F-16s is only growing. This piece here, just wanted to go down here. Hold on. Making sure I'm getting to the right part. They bring up all the different wars. They talk about Syria. They talk about Iran. All of these different conflicts that the United States has been involved in. And then this piece here, legislative support for eternal warfare. Legislative moves in Congress unabashedly reflect this country's pivot to eternal war. Admittedly, the push for an ever-expanding battlefield didn't start with the great power conflicts leading today's headlines. The 2001 congressional authorization for the use of military force, which paved the way for the invasion in Afghanistan, gave the president essentially unlimited authority to take offensive action in the name of countering terrorism by not naming an enemy or providing any geographical or time limits. Since the fall of 2001, just as Representative Barbara Lee predicted, while casting the only vote against it, that AUMF has served as a presidential blank check when it comes to authorizing the use of force more or less anywhere. And so the question that we need to start asking, when does it end? They get into the budget. And the requests for the 2024 budget are now in, as Pentagon expert William Hartung reports at $886 billion. $886 billion. Whatever happened to the idea of peace? When it comes to the war in Ukraine, there is a widely shared sense that it's going to last and last and last some more. Certain experts see nothing short of layers of fighting still on the horizon, especially since there seems to be little appetite for peace among American officials. While French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz have reportedly urged Ukrainian President Zelensky to consider peace talks, they seem to have few illusions about how long the war is likely to go on. For his part, Zelensky has made it clear that when it comes to Russia, there is nothing to talk about and nobody to talk about over there. Disturbingly, American calls for peace and diplomacy have tended to further embrace the ongoing war. And there's something else I need to tell you as well. Tomorrow is the Boston Marathon. I've been to it multiple times. Tomorrow, runners from Russia and Belarus will not be allowed to participate in the Boston Marathon. It has gotten to the point where people who had nothing to do with this war at all are being penalized because of it. The athletes have nothing to do with this war, yet they're being shut out. That happens tomorrow. This is not to tell you not to attend the marathon. If you want to go and have a good time. But while you were there, I want you to remember who can't be there. That's terrible. When Jill Stein was here a couple days ago, she was telling you about how some of the Russian artists are being banned. These people have nothing to do with the conflict at hand. And the fact that they are penalizing people because of where they're from, just because they're citizens of these countries, I think it's unfair. And I think it gives rise to Russophobia. I really do. Very sad. Never thought I'd see that coming from the Boston Marathon, considering the fact it was just a couple of years ago that people lost their lives at the damn marathon because of the Boston Marathon bomber. You would think the city officials who support the race, the people who are in charge of organizing the race, you think the last thing they'd want to do is to divide people. You think what they'd want to do is to embrace people. But that's not happening. Now, I don't know where that order came from. I don't know who made that call, but that's a bad call. Bad call. Make sure you share that with people. For those who don't know, the Boston Marathon is a big deal here. It's a big deal. People come from all over the world. Damn shame. Damn shame. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Jim. Becoming addicted to your truth telling. Keep on, I don't know where the rest of this is, but keep on rocking in the free world. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you so much. Very sad. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button, guys. And Eric, when you're ready, we can go ahead and reveal those poll results, and I'll pull up that that Assange video. Thank you. All right. Let's see those poll results. Are you concerned about artificial intelligence? 69% of you said yes. 18% of you said no. And 13% said not sure. That's actually a high number for the yes, to be honest. The what do you call it? The artificial intelligence. That's actually pretty high. 69%. Interesting. Oh, did you already? You already found it, Eric? Oh, you did already find it. Okay. So I want to end with this. Actually, I need to thank you guys first because I forgot to do this last time. So thank you guys so much for 34,000 subs. I meant to say this Friday night and I forgot, just like a lot of other things, but we have officially hit 34,000K. It actually might be a little bit more than that. Thank you guys so much. It means I'm doing something right here. So I really do appreciate your support, and we'll just keep on rocking in the free world, as he said, as Jim said. Yeah. Woohoo! I wish there was something on StreamYard where I could do some type of celebration thing, but they don't have like balloons. No, I don't think StreamYard has like balloons or something. There's music. There's. For all you headbangers out there, you can start headbanging if you like to do that. If you like to do that. But you found it, Eric? Okay. But thank you guys so much. Mwah! Thank you. Awesome time. Okay, we're gonna ride out with this video here from Assange because I want you to remember what these wars are actually about. It looks like this is a short
Jimmy Dore.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
The goal is to have an endless war, not a successful one. Thank you for the super chat, Mastario. Happy 34K. Keep up the fight. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. I'm heading out of here. No call in tonight. I actually have a meeting instead, but I'll be back Tuesday. And then Wednesday, don't forget, Eric and I are going to be going on the ground, actually, to cover RFK Jr.'s presidential announcement here in Boston. See you Tuesday. I'm heading out. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.